looks like you're probably pretty good at farming because that's pretty much what you've done your whole career. But I'm going to get you those jobs that you want to do.
Yeah.
We might.
Welcome to the Crownsman Podcast. This is episode 29. I'm your host, Jared Downey, and my co-host, Gowdy Molina.
Thank you, and good morning.
Good morning. Welcome back from your vacation.
Yes, we had a little break. Not just myself, but I guess the Crownsman podcast took a little break as well. So this is our.
Yeah, but I had to do some of the fill-in stuff, so it was not a break for me.
No. There wasn't a break for you, but definitely for the podcast itselil.
But it's a very well-deserved break.
So we're back.
And the audience got a break from us. They were probably relieved.
Or they missed us.
They missed us. Yeah, let's go with that. So it's episode 29. It's funny because my first company was a exterior company. Mm-hmm. So we were doing gutters and siding and railings and all this sort of stuff. And we were on all these construction projects, and I would see people trying to get people, and then the temporary people coming in, and it's back and forth and back and forth. Mm-hmm. And I never clued in. I know it sounds strange, but at that time, I mean, in fairness, I was 19 years old, but I never kind of clued in that there's these organizations that are bringing people in, like they're actually hooking up the employees.
Oh, okay.
The tradesmen are being brought in for the employers. And so anyway, when we started doing the show, I kind of wanted we've talked so much about technology, business, finance, all this type of stuff. We haven't really actually swung the camera around on the workers.
Yeah.
And so I found Tradesmen International, and I found David LeBlanc. Mm-hmm. And David's the GM. We'll bring him on camera in a second. And so I started looking into what this organization does. And Tradesmen International is massive. I'll let David talk a little bit more about that. Mm-hmm. But they're the ones who are putting all these tradesmen onto all these projects and dealing with the guys and girls getting these short-term contracts and then long-term contracts, and trying to get employers to do things a certain way so the jobs actually they don't end up overstaffing, and there's just so much stuff that they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to me, especially from all the work that I was doing before. That would have been helpful to know about that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what we're going to be doing today.
Awesome.
Going over.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you're ready, but I will kind of jump in with just one of our sponsors. We do have sponsors. Great, and it's always fantastic to have sponsors. So First up, we've got Savona Equipment. If you need anything from slurry pumps to jaw crushers to ball mills to conveyors, go to the leader in used mining equipment. And you can visit them at savonaequipment.com, where you'll find more equipment every day.
Perfect. Okay. You're just doing the one sponsor off the top?
Just one. We'll do the next one in the middle there.
Sounds good. Mm-hmm. David, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for you were one of the early guests. Some people come a little bit late. Some people come right on time. You're the early guy, so you got to see us running around trying to get it all organized.
Yeah, right on
the
time.
Behind the scenes stuff. Mm-hmm. So I want to give a little setup of what Tradesmen International is, because it's not a unique organization and they're the only player in town. There's definitely organizations that are doing these types of service, but it is, to a lot of our viewers, it's going to be sort of the first time they've heard people kind of unpackage what it is. So can you give that first snapshot of Tradesmen International, where they are, who they're serving, who the actual customer is, who they represent, all that sort of stuff?
Right. I think that the most important part of that is the name of the company is called Tradesmen. So our primary focus is these qualified, skilled, highly skilled trades personnel that are in, primarily the construction industry. So that's, from residential to commercial to industrial types of, employment and jobs for these people. There's a lot of different services available. Like here in the Lower Mainland, there's I can count at least 10. A lot of them are primarily focused on the lower end of the spectrum, which is labor,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, and those guys, are just looking for potentially short-term employment.
Right.
Whereas I'm more focused on full-time employment, 52 weeks of the year. We're a full-time employer. We do payroll every Friday. We pay these people every Friday. Um, and we take care of our employees.
Right.
So
That when you said construction, I mean, construction is a big scope to it. Are you talking about residential high rises, or do getting into the oil and gas, energy, mining? Like where does where does the reach go?
well, the reach goes where if you use the word trades, who's in the trades? Carpenters, electricians, plumbers, welders, millwrights, heavy equipment operators. So that should transcend into oil and gas, mining, forestry. In the lower mainland here, obviously we see a lot of construction.
That's the big one, yeah.
That's the big one right now. Do we see a lot of oil and gas in BC or Alberta right now? Not so much.
Hmm.
Oil and gas is a great application for tradesmen.
Right.
So there's some projects in northern Alberta and northern BC that we're working on. I think that those are still in development stages. Like they want to get some work done, and I think that that's starting to happen now. It's starting to loosen up here in Western Canada. But it's a little bit slow out there.
Yeah.
For that.
I was actually confused when I first talked to you. I was thinking, I was pretty sure you weren't actually a union, but I was thinking it was more of a model where the workers, the tradesmen, were coming and being basically a membership of some kind. But that's
Mhm.
actually the opposite, right?
Right.
It's the companies that are hiring you
That's
to
correct.
do it, and then the employees are the members. Is that how it works?
The employees, like, there's no cost for our service on the employee side. We want to, we want to recruit them. We want to give them full-time jobs if that's what they desire.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people now I see can't work full-time. They want to take a month off to travel. They want to, who knows what it is, but they have that flexibility with us.
Mm.
Everybody has that flexibility with us. Our field employees, for instance, if a carpenter says, Dave, I want to take a couple weeks off, and I've got him on a 2 month job. So how do you manage that? Well, I would flex in another carpenter,
Oh, I see.
go there for a couple of weeks. We would call the client. We say, listen, this guy wants to take a vacation. What do you think of that? Yeah. Is he doing the job that he was set out to do over there? We sent him over there to do some framing. How is that going? Well, Dave, we're almost done the framing. Okay, so maybe we're moving on to some finishing carpentry, and maybe he doesn't need to come back to that site, and I can send some finishing carpenters over there to do that scope of work. He could take the 2 weeks off, and we could go back to some other framing jobs because there's quite a few of them in the lower mainland.
Right.
So that's kind of how our service works for the best. Whereas a construction company, the guy leaves for 2 weeks. Do they have somebody else to fill that position?
Yeah. Then you
You know,
got a
so
guy
th-
with
so
not
then
a-
people are maybe
yeah.
trying to take vacations when it's a downturn or slower season or
Right,
something
yeah.
like that. So
So it's well, that's pretty unique in the sense. Now, what is the size of the companies you're working with? Because even the smaller companies, they're working with, everybody does a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Now, so but are you generally working with a larger clientele, 100 plus employees, or where's that range?
within tradesmen, honestly, what they think is the smaller residential home builders are the best fit. And why is that? Is because if you're going to build a home, let's say in the lower mainland, do you need a framer to do all the work? You need all these kinds of different guys for all these different tasks, right? So you might need some formwork carpenters to
Right.
start. You might need some framers, and then you might need some finishing carpenters. You need somebody to help with the roofing and so on and so forth. So you need all these different kinds of personnel. So is it better to have 2 or 3 guys or 5 guys that have these, normally those trades are focused on their trade.
Yeah.
Whereas, these companies potentially are retaining them. They may or may not be doing what they're really, really good at
Right.
every day.
Yeah.
So is that production efficient?
Mm-hmm.
We don't think so.
So well, and so if there's a small development project, on a cost savings, and I know that's not really your job to figure that out for the companies, but if I'm building a home and I'm coming to you and I'm actually hiring a couple of electricians, that theoretically could bypass going to a contractor and getting the contractor to come in and he's billing out at $100 an hour. Does that happen, or is that something different?
It's something that could happen. It depends again on the scope of work.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, what would happen is, if you had an electrical contractor come out, they would potentially want to do their scope of work. But we could integrate if for some reason they didn't have the adequate manpower, we could help them bulk out some of that work.
Right.
We don't go and estimate jobs or provide a superintendent on the job site.
Right.
So, they would have to answer to somebody on site.
Yeah.
The contractor on site could probably just use our service and, but he would have to manage that.
Yeah. Is it the people that you're employing, like you brought up finishers and electricians and those sort of trades, those construction trades, or building trades, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the construction, like you mentioned, the heavy equipment operators.
Yeah.
So that can be anywhere from people putting in a road to people running a crane, people not really transporting equipment but loading equipment and anything in those sort of fields.
Yeah, operators could be from Class 1A driver to forklift operators to excavator operators.
Now, does that change, like the Canadian? What's the difference between the Canadian version and the U.S. version? Same company, same services, but does it sort of draw in a different group? Like in the Lower Mainland, I'm guessing there's a lot of finishers and those types of trades.
We talk about that a lot, and in all of our offices, what kind of guys are you using in your area? What kind of work is over there, right? And we're in a lot of different places. Not as vibrant in construction as Vancouver is.
Right.
And so, there's all kinds of different needs for various locations. So, we're dispatching from a Canadian company, for instance, to build water parks all over the U.S.
Right.
So what kind of guys is that? Well, sometimes they need some carpenters. Sometimes they need some welders.
Welders, yeah.
And they need, some laborers to help them out a bit. So we got quite a wide variety of clientele.
Right, yeah.
Just mentioning with like how it works with workers, you're basically sending people over to do a job for a big company. Is there ever, or does it happen, or can it happen where you send someone over? Can they from there be hired directly by that company?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm pretty sure I get that asked to me probably every day.
I've been meaning to ask that since I met you, actually.
And it's always that scenario where they're always like, oh man, I really like this guy. What do you think? I'm like, well, if I sell you the guy or you take the guy off my hands and you put him on your payroll, why do you need him, first of all? Do you have 52 weeks of the year work? Or do you have these projects that may or may not come to an end before they are, getting 52 weeks of the year work? I don't like to get rid of my guys because we spend a lot of time and energy recruiting our personnel so that we can take care of the clients that need our service. Right. So if everybody took all of my guys, then I would, guys, girls, then I would have nobody. And then my clients would be phoning me, and how would I be able to help them, right?
Right.
So there's different services out there. There's recruiting services. There's labor services, and then there's labor consultants. And we're more of a labor consultant type of company, whereas we come in and we want to get to know our client's business. We want to go to their job sites. We want to see what that work looks like, what their crews, how the crews are meshing, and find out what the various scopes of work are, so we can integrate some guys and provide billable hours. The billable hours is something that, when you're bidding on a job, you should be able to use our manpower to make money.
Right. So yeah, you were, and you've talked about through our conversations that you're building off of Gowdy's question. You want, on one hand, you want to keep your people employed.
Yep.
On the other hand, you want them to stay employed with you. So when a company's coming in and he brings in an electrician, and he goes, well, this project is going to go 2 years, but he's also got to come back because you are an employer.
Mm-hmm.
So it is in a sense, you are stealing that employee from them. So so you're kind of a double-edged sword.
It's quite the opposite. So let's pretend I'm an electrical contractor.
Okay.
And I've bid on all these jobs, and the electrical contractors they've got quite a bit of work. They can forecast, like you said, a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have their primary workers, which is like, let's call them your A workers. On these job sites, you might need some A guys, you might need some B guys, and you might need some C guys. Or you might need some various levels of apprenticeship for electrical. For instance, do you need a journeyman electrician to just pull wire all day? I think that you could use a first year or second year apprentice, substantially cheaper, to just pull wire all day. Are you going to hire a bunch of electrical apprentices for your company to go do these jobs, or are you more focused on completing the tasks and having the journeymans, the Red Seal electricians on site, and maybe having a smaller core group of good, and when I say A guys, I mean guys. A guys, how do you become an A guy is skill set and attendance, in my opinion, is quite huge. You can have the best guy, journeyman, but if he doesn't show up for work, it's not very good.
Right.
But in those scenarios, what works well is if you have your good A guys, I want to supply you with some A guys as well. If you get into a situation where you need to speed up production and bulk out some work. So I could integrate, some first, second, third year guys, and then maybe a couple of journeymans potentially, depending on what those scopes look like. So you can help complete tasks on time. So the general contractors and the developers always stay on schedule.
Right. It's sort of I want to go a little further with it though. That it's so you, on one hand, because you've talked about you want the people to be 52. You want those 52 weeks.
They don't need to work for me 52 weeks of the year. We just want to make sure that they're working 52
but they're
weeks
working.
of the year. You got 52 weeks of the year bills to pay every year.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you do that? You just see, when I worked in the trades, I was constantly looking for work. Like, you're looking around the job site, you're like, I think we're going to be done here in a couple of weeks.
I mean, I have brother-in-laws at work. I said to you, they're in the trades, and it's just it's like 2 months and you're boom, and then they're sitting at home for another month and it's down, and the one newscast comes out and then the jobs dry up for a month. Like, it's almost bizarre. So you're trying to sort of,
on, off, start, stop. We're trying to bridge that gap. Another scenario would be, let's pretend you are electrical tradesperson, and you're working for a great electrical company. But he's got some projects, and maybe there's some delays and stuff like that. I could onboard you. You could come and work for me for a couple of weeks. I'll put you to work. We'll pay you every Friday. And then if your boss calls you and you say, listen, I need your help now, this job's really going, and can you come back? Of course you can come back. Go back to your original employer, but I could maybe be a short-term bridge for those persons.
Right. That's interesting. Do you have the numbers of how many employees that are under Tradesmen International that are working now? Are you tracking? Are you tracking
Well,
when
I
they're
can tell
working for
you,
you and when they're working for other people? Like if they're coming in and out, are you tracking when they're working for another employer as well, or are you just tracking within?
every tradesperson has a different need.
Right.
Do they want to work every day? Do they need to work every day? You know,
Mm.
I'm always under the assumption, since I work every day, that most people need to do that as well, in
Right.
one way or another, like 5 days a week at the very least,
Yeah.
right? But I get these scenarios where, you know, they want to go back to school, they need time to study, they've got children, you know, and so we insulate them, from going and working for the full-time employer, which we are as well. Um, but they really need their help and they just have no flexibility.
Right.
We offer that flexibility because if a guy can't go to work this week, you know, if I have the right guy that can go and do those tasks and the client so desires, we could send another guy to go and keep billing, like keep completing tasks and provide billable hours
Yeah.
for them, right?
And then when the next employer needs somebody, you've got the next person essentially in the Rolodex to go, okay, now I can slot them in.
Well, this guy's coming off.
Yeah.
Do you need him? What do you guys got going on next week? Do you need this journeyman electrician next week? Yeah, we sure could use him, but we only need him for a week. So are you going to go and recruit a guy for the
Mhm.
week?
Right.
Or should you maybe consider one of the various services out there to kind of help you out a little bit?
Yeah. This up and down though with the trades, do you think are there ways to avoid it? Because you've got it seems a little extreme sometimes. And you
It's
see,
extreme.
yeah, well, it's because you're looking at it from two sides. Like I said, most of our shows have been done from the executive management side. That's a big part of who we have on the show.
Mhm.
And so this is really for me the first time on the show swinging it around to the other side. And so I understand, even from running my own companies, I understand within us, we get busy. All of a sudden, we hire people. They come in, camera operators or whoever it is,
Yeah.
and then we hire them for a short period of time, and then we just don't need them anymore. The project's done. The client's wrapped up with us, and so we're wrapped up with this part-time contractor. Is there? I mean, can you see actual errors that are happening for the employers?
Well, you can see it in our marketplace here in the Lower Mainland. It's created quite a stir where, you know, these employees don't know they don't have a home. They don't
Yeah.
know they don't have a permanent placement, and it's a direct result of, I don't think it's everybody's fault. I just think that it's just there's a lot of information and education that companies should do. Like for instance, are you a full-time employer? Well, I have many employees and they've been with me for years.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, how many is that? And what does your workflow look like? What does it look like? Do you need 10 guys or do you need 5 really good guys? And then maybe you need a couple of persons to flex in and out here and there.
Right.
So what is that called? You know, it's like it's like uh, it's like owning a car. Do you buy a car and just because you're going to get groceries once a week and that's it? Do you really need a car? Or do you think maybe you could rent a car for that day? It'd be substantially cheaper
Mhm.
and just go get your groceries and go home, unpack your groceries, and that's it. You don't need a car for the rest of the week. You live downtown potentially and you work downtown, so don't need a car.
Yeah.
There's all these different kinds of scenarios, and that's why there's all these different kinds of services.
Right.
So you got to do, some research.
Yeah.
For sure.
I want to get into a little bit about your background because it's interesting, and you had you had someone who's apprenticing with you come in with you today,
Yeah.
and he's a welder.
Welder by trade.
Yeah, you're a carpenter.
Carpenter by
Trade. Are a lot of the guys before we get into sort of your background? Are a lot of the people that work in the organization are they trades backgrounds? Is that sort of commonplace?
They have a good understanding of what the field employee will be going through on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
It's not always the case.
Yeah.
There's people that have worked in, we call them, it's a field representative, it's a sales position, whereas they have no construction knowledge.
Yeah.
Because you don't know who needs the service. It could be construction, it could be manufacturing, it could be industrial, it could be, all these various industries, and you just never know who's going to need help.
Right.
So
yeah, let's get into a little bit about sort of where you're from, what you've done, because you've covered a bit of ground.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, before I get into it, I'll just do a little shout out to our other sponsor, Sean Daly. So we've got a book from the Erksberg Potosi, A History of Geology and Mining Since the 1500s. This book traces the history of mining and geology from the 1500s in the valuable silver mines of the Erksberg Mountains of eastern Germany to the rich silver mines of Bolivia, including Potosi. And it's written by Sean Daly, and you can order the book online at Amazon. And we'll have the links in our description below. So definitely go check it out. Alrighty, so my turn. Well, I want to know more about you and how you started, not just with the company, but kind of your background.
Yeah. I grew up working with my father. Grew up in forestry at a very young age, and that was my education in production and manufacturing. I didn't get into construction until my son was born, and I was living in the Okanagan, and that was basically the only kinds of jobs that you could make a living at that was available. I had no construction knowledge, and started working for a formwork company there, and it was a very good education. It was a very good employer. He provided us with very steady work. Our crew, honestly, within 6 high-rises, changed within 2 people in 6 years.
Wow.
We were probably one of 3 or 5 high-rise companies in the valley. So I was lucky that way. And he taught me a lot about, construction in general. With the, I went from construction and into oil and gas for a while. Spent some time in northern Alberta. Pretty much seen every plant that's there, and in 6 years. And, worked in carpentry with Husky. And then I transitioned into oil and gas as I was in forestry and knew how to run equipment. Went as an operator working on pipeline. And so that's where I learned a lot about oil and gas and all the moving parts. And it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. And then how did you start with Tradesmen International?
I could see the downturn in Edmonton when I was living there, and I was constantly looking for more work all the time. You're getting into these jobs, and it was like almost done, and everybody was like, "Why don't you just stay with one company?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, it doesn't really work like that.
Yeah.
I ended up moving back to Vancouver, and I was working in finance actually. And the recruiter that was in my office now, she's not there anymore. She was very good though, and she ended up calling me, and she's like, "Yeah, I've got your resume. You're a carpenter. We could use your help. Are you interested?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm not interested." And so, "Well, why don't you come in and see us?" Okay, so I came in and seen them, and so they explained to me how tradesmen worked, and I was like, "Oh, cool. So it's kind of like a part-time job." That's what I thought, right?
Yeah.
Like, I got some time for that, right? I was working finance at night and earlier in the mornings and stuff like that. I had some time still. Like, an 8-hour day job for me was literally part-time, coming from oil and gas where you're working 14, 16 hours a day. So I was like, "Oh, I'll check it out," right? He's like, "Try some dispatches." We call them dispatches. Try some dispatches, and, you don't always have to take the jobs. We can offer you the jobs, and if you like them, you go do them. And if you want another dispatch, you give us a shout. I was like, "Okay, cool." And so I did that for a year, actually. And it was my area manager that talked to me one day, and he's like, "Well, why do you work for tradesmen as a carpenter? What is it that you like about it?" I said, Well, you know what is I can kind of see when the job's almost over, and I call in. I'll say, I think I'm going to be done here in a couple of days. And why don't you give me a call when there's another dispatch? And meanwhile, I'll be out skiing and biking, which is what I like doing. And in a couple of days, they'd phone me and they're like, "Okay, Monday start. Go to this job site." Okay, cool. So then I'd come home and go back to work, right? So really flexible for me. I really liked it. So the funny part about how I came to be the GM of the office is it was not my desire. It was not my intention, but it was probably due to the fact that it was raining a lot, and I was like, this carpentry in the rain is not that fun. I would rather swing the hammer in -40 than the rain, quite frankly, right?
Yeah.
And I saw it was, getting close to Christmas, and I was like, tradesmen had approached me, and they're just like, what do you think about sales? We know your resume, and you've done some sales and all kinds of different things, and would you be interested in it? I was like, I don't know, check it out, right? So I decided to check it out, and it worked very well for me. I understood the guys in the field, really connected with the employees, and I started to connect with our clients, the contractors, et cetera, right? And they started to understand my personality. I'm like, they would order or try to do an order with me, and they're like, "Well, I need a couple guys, a couple carpenters." I'm like, "Oh, okay. So what are we doing over there? Like, what's the scopes of work?" And then, begrudgingly, they start telling me what's going on, and I'd start figuring out their job sites. And then you go to the sites and you start to see what's going on. You start to learn more about these companies.
This is very hands-on than what you're doing. Yeah.
It's really hands-on for the sales position. We call it the field representative.
Yeah.
And I built a very good book of business. I had about 50 good carpenters doing, the various carpentry, like framing, finishing, and forming. That was what I understood. That was what we had available to us here in the Lower Mainland. And I was flexing them within 20 clients. 50 guys within 20 clients was kind of my little format. And, and then I started to, that was running pretty smooth. And I was like, I'm from pipelining, I was always hanging out with the welders. So I really wanted to get those guys work. I seen that they were making big money. I seen, that rate was, a third basically of what they were used to making. And I wanted to just try and help them. I'm like, I can't pay $100 an hour, but what do you think of doing these jobs here? Those rates are like $30, $40, right?
Yeah. Sort of while you're waiting for the big pipeline jobs to come up in Alberta and all that.
We waited.
Yeah.
That's been a year and a half now. So
Yeah.
and this is what I was really ramping up to do was this pipeline work where I would, have 100 guys out, welding and operating, safety personnel, et cetera, all the way up to project managers and superintendents. Because in oil and gas, they rent everything.
Right.
Because when they're done those projects,
That's it.
because they're bigger projects, when they're done, they're done.
Yeah.
And then when you bid, you're going to another job where potentially you're going to make some money. But it might not be the day after the next project's done.
It might be 6 months. I've seen people wait for 6-8 months.
So you know what that looks like. And so, if I had a number of those oil and gas companies, you should be able to flex our crew in and out of those jobs. I don't want to take away the company's, their personnel. I don't want to take away from that. What I want to do is I want to help them with regards to making sure that they have the right amount of personnel on site for the various scopes of work on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
You may or may not need our service.
Yeah.
When I get into those interviews, and we can kind of try to explain our business model, it starts to make sense to them pretty quick.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to bring up something that I think is quite important. It's what is it? It's
Well, we call that the fully loaded pay rate.
Yeah.
The fully loaded pay rate, it's kind of a sore spot for a lot of the contractors and clients that I deal with.
Yeah.
Because we talk about it and we're like, do you really know what that guy costs per hour? On this one, we use $20 an hour. I like to talk about $30 an hour because $30 an hour is reflective of, a good carpenter, third, fourth year type guy.
Right.
So, $30 guy is $50 an hour. And everybody's like, no, he's not. Well, we think that he is, and we can explain that. So on the fully loaded pay rate, you've got EI, CPP, workers' comp, insurance, and some admin costs. So when we were doing some research on it, just most of the rates are similar to a contractor's, but when we got into the workers' comp, we're 3 points cheaper than a framing company, a forming company. Some were cheaper, but we were cheaper than a lot of them just due to their accidents and incidents and stuff like that, right?
And you have all these different levels of in your Rolodex. You have the different levels of people, so you can slot in more accurately than a framing company with. I'm not going after the framing companies,
No,
but nobody is. But if I had a frame, my exterior.
it's always about the scope of work.
Yeah, my exterior company, we had a few guys that knew how to do, but they didn't know how to do all this other stuff. So you actually have those people on hand. Those are specific tasks, right?
Yeah, it's a juggling act because you got to phone them all up and, hey, what are you doing now? Oh, I'm busy with this. When are you going to be ready? Type thing, right? Because they're flexing in and out.
Yeah.
Too, right. If I can't pay you enough and there's a job across the street, go there.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great opportunity. Like, why would you want to commute when you could walk across the street?
Yeah.
But when you're done, you can come back here.
Right. Yeah.
And we'll put you to work. We try to put the average employee, 30 minutes in the morning to go to work. If you have a vehicle, I think is pretty fair. If you're on public transportation, within 60 minutes, you should be on site.
Yeah.
So not too, we see that. Where's the guys out? Where's the people out? Where's their vehicles out? The fuel is super expensive. That's a big. Everybody's talking about the fuel right now.
Yeah.
Dave, I'm traveling too much. It's costing me too much in fuel. How can we fix this? I'm like, well, why don't I find you a different site that's closer?
Right.
And let's just go work there, and I'll just kind of start moving guys around.
I certainly didn't realize it was as hands-on as it is. It's not like through a portal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was a field rep, I used to spend the last 2 hours of my workday, which was probably after 5 p.m., just moving guys around. Hey, are you ready to go tomorrow? We're going to a different site.
Yeah.
And with the field rep, one of the big things that we do is when you transition to a new site, we do what's called a walkout. Whereas the walkout, in our opinion, is very important, whereas we introduce the field employee to the company and the job site. And, just kind of do like a handshake and a turnover. It doesn't take very long, couple minutes. Hey, how you doing? This is our guy. Check him out, right?
Yeah.
Give us a shout midday. Make sure you like him. Make sure he's integrating with the crew. We vet the client as much as we vet the employee as well. Whereas I'm like, well, what kind of guys you got working over there?
Yeah.
What do you think's what's working well for you? What hasn't worked well for you? Like I'm always asking those questions, and probably irritates them.
Yeah.
But they're important questions.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure I have the right person on your site. I'm not really sending warm bodies to cold job sites and here you go. It's not like that at all.
Well, efficiency is such an important part of running these companies, and I want this fully loaded pay rate. I'm seeing this peak, and we'll bring it up on the screen later on in that. But this efficiency, you said we might be a few points cheaper than a contractor, but and the efficiency side of my mind goes, okay, but if you're slotting the right people in for the right job at the right time, you must have an efficiency in personnel. So at the end of the job, if you had the right people working the right job at the right rates, there's a good chance you should get it done faster, which is obviously going to cost less, plus more efficient, less fixing time, all that. So do you make the argument Maybe I should be a sales rep.
I try to make the argument.
But you're trying to make the argument that you're at the end of this project, you could actually save them. I mean, it could be on a
substantial
a huge amount of money on a skyscraper.
Yeah. Internally with tradesmen, like we've been at it for 27 years now.
Yeah.
So there's every kind of, if you can imagine, spreadsheet for every kind of scenario known to man. And that is our job, is to come out and visit with, the owners of these companies and just say, you don't need to use our service. But, if you have 5 minutes, I can show you how to save some money maybe and take more profit. I don't know if you're interested in that.
Yeah. And that's the consulting side. You said that's where that. So then I want to clarify the business model too, because when you're so someone's coming in, they're a carpenter, they're $30 an hour, but we've crunched numbers here. We know that a $30 an hour employee is not 30; it is 50, and that's being if you got office space in that, it's a lot more than that. But it's $50 an hour, let's say. Where is the business model for tradesmen in that? Is that worked into that $50, or is it? How does it even?
The answer to that question is it is worked into it, whereas it doesn't always work this way. Where I get a call and you can kind of sense it in their voice where they're in a jam.
Right.
I already know they need some help. So we're there to help, obviously. But once we get into if we're able to have a meeting with some of the owners of the companies, what we like to do is ask about what projects do you have on the books for 6 to 12 months from now. This is where I need to live as the GM. I need to be talking about, okay, we think that the marketplace is going to change next year. We think that there's not going to be enough guys. When are you doing this project? Oh, August? When everybody else is doing a project? Is there going to be any guys around? I'll have guys around.
Yeah.
They'll be working. But I can flex them in and out of your job to accommodate your different scopes of work.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. It's really amazing.
Use our manpower.
Yeah, because I just remember these construction sites that I've been on, and I never clued in that was even an option. It never even crossed my mind that was an option.
Well, you see it more and more, especially here in the Lower Mainland.
Yeah, yeah.
More than, anywhere else in Canada, I would say right now.
So are they just paying? So a big employer, though, they're not paying you. It's not like a monthly fee for a membership. They're only paying you a percentage of what they're paying their employee. Is that right?
That's another great question. So how our service works is you only pay for what you use.
Right.
So there's no fee or anything like that. So let's pretend you got the $30 an hour guy. He's going out at $50. And so what does that look like? Well, he worked Monday to Friday, 40 hours. He has a time card. Their superintendent on site will sign off and verify his hours.
Right.
I cannot generate an invoice without them signing off or giving permission or acknowledging verifying those hours to us. So, the following week we're paying them, and we're remitting an invoice with the time card attached. So there's really no discrepancies, and then you put GST on there.
Right.
So you see exactly everything in one shot. Tradesmen is trying to incorporate a virtual time card, whereas they don't even have to do a signature anymore. They're basically entering virtually the hours, and there's lockbox deposits, and it's very efficient.
Right. Yeah.
So, there's no way for there to be a discrepancy.
Yeah. So really, when it comes down to it, it's in a way, if I'm an employer sitting there, and you, of course, these people are busy, the people you're dealing with, so you have to have that time to explain it. But at the end of the day, if they can understand, they're going, okay, it's costing us $50 an hour. Hire in a guy that might not be able to slot in. One guy can't slot in for all these tasks.
Right.
You're saying, well, I can slot these people in for you, and I'm $50 an hour. But the right person on the right job.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's a tough one as well. Whereas you're getting into bidding some jobs, and trying to figure out what is your cost of manpower, and how much am I going to bid on this job and what am I going to win the bid at?
Right.
So, you see this in the short term dispatches, let's call it,
Yep.
whereas they're like, well, your price is a little bit too expensive. So at that time, I'm like, it's not really my fault that you had to underbid the job.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the process because that's how it works. Everybody's trying to, you could put a bid in. Will you get the bid?
Yeah.
So how do you get the bid? Is it money? It's usually about money in one shape or form, right? So I think that, it's a good exercise to be able to get in front of the clients to help them bid. And I have a lot of tools to be able to do that. I have 2 pieces of software where I can pull permits for anywhere in North America.
Oh, so you're not, so they're that way you're not doing it after the fact. They've already got this bid and now they're coming to you and
Yeah.
you're going, well, no, it's $7 an hour more for 10 guys.
Yeah.
Well, now you're $70
Why are
an
you
hour
bidding
more.
on that
Yeah.
job when everybody else is bidding on the same job? There's many great jobs out there, like projects, I mean.
Yeah.
Whereas like in BC alone, there's probably, last time I searched, there was 450 provincially and federally funded projects with regards to hospitals and schools alone. So you're bidding on the stuff in the Lower Mainland. What about in Northern BC or somewhere like that? Well, I don't have any guys there, Dave.
We got the guys.
But
there.
I have guys.
Yeah.
I could help you with those projects.
Yeah.
I think you could make great money. Let me come in and help you bid on those jobs and help your company turn more profit.
Yeah.
Like, because you don't need all these different guys for this. What's happening now is a lot of the construction companies, maybe shrinking their workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then they shrink their bidding.
Right.
And we come in and we're like, you should be bidding more. Use your core group of guys, bid on more work. Let me help you, provide you with the numbers and facts, and let's get that work.
Yeah.
We want to help you get that work.
Yeah. When we're talking about trades, we use the term guys probably 90% of the time. And honestly,
the women are more than welcome in the trades.
Yeah. But I wanted to, well, of course, yeah. Are you seeing more? I know even on our show, we've had a couple women on the show. We're certainly not looking for men or women. We're looking for experts in their field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd say, 90% are men,
Are
probably?
men,
Yeah. Are you seeing any sort of shift?
I don't know if they want to do that work. They're more than welcome in the trades.
Most men don't want to do that work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think maybe it depends on the trade also. Some of the trades are very, labor intensive, like heavy lifting and stuff like that. May or may not be appealing to most females. There's a lot of very good, great tradespersons that are female.
Yeah.
If you wanna be a carpenter, you're more than welcome over here. Electrician, millwright, welder. We hire. There's no discrimination in our office. Like, if you want to work and you're a good worker and you're reliable, we want to help you.
Yeah.
So.
But over the years, you really haven't seen, and it doesn't surprise me. I was just curious if
it could be a potential solution to what they refer to as the skilled trade shortage.
Well, it's just the one thing because I was talking to one of my step niece, so a niece married into the family, and so she's a nurse, and I didn't realize the nurses have the and I'm speaking with very little expertise in the field, but they've essentially, if they start a family, there's options to say, well, I'm going to work to keep their ticket. They'll work like 2 days a week, and there's the flexibility.
Yep.
And it just strikes me that these trades, which are sometimes, you're saying, I mean, they're not $12 an hour jobs. Some of them are you said
You
about
look in the Lower Mainland, the trades, I would say, is a very good paying job. It's not, it's very expensive to live here. Obviously, you want to be able to make as much money as possible. trades is, it'll pay the bills. It did it for me.
And there's some, but through an organization like Tradesmen International, there is some there's a little bit more flexibility than if you got to be on.
Well, we want to help people progress.
Right.
So how does that work? Well, to do apprenticeships here in BC is what's called the ITA. And so those hours are tracked by us. As soon as the day you're, onboarded with us, we're tracking you. You go to various dispatches and we're tracking those ITA hours. So if you come to me and you say, listen, I'm really interested in this electrician's trade. What does that look like? I'm like, electrician's a very good trade. You could make up to $40 an hour, let's say. But you got to start somewhere. So who's going to sponsor you for this apprenticeship? Is the local electrical company wanting to do that? Do they have that kind of work available for them? Because there is a cost to, helping these people progress as well.
Yeah,
and so
huge
we absorb
cost.
that.
Yeah.
You can start as an electrical apprentice, do your 1,600 hours. We track your hours, you go to school, progress you to the next stage with, electrical apprentice 2 would pay another $2, $2 or $3, right? And so on and so forth. And whereas we've had successful people finish up into Red Seal through our office.
Really? Yeah. There's the other thing, and I wanted to touch. It's you think you're going to cover more ground in these shows, but sometimes when you dig in, it takes more time to kind of unpack it, and it's such good information. Especially, I think anybody watching this, if they're on the employer side or the employee side.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on both sides of it, and I know the information you're telling me. I just simply hadn't heard before, just hadn't come across. You have another thing in Tradesmen International where you're doing, it's like there's a spousal. I don't know if it's a spousal program or if that's just a byproduct of it. Is that actually a concerted effort to do?
When we're recruiting,
Yeah.
you usually see a scenario where the husband and wife come in. And so they get to learn about the service. So, it's in the back of their minds, obviously. There's a referral program that we have in our office and within Tradesmen, because we find that referrals is the best way to get these reliable, highly skilled, responsible people.
Right.
And so you often see, the husband or the wife. Actually, it was the wife the other day that was in my office, and he was working somewhere else, and she wasn't happy. They were working in the same company, and she wanted to try something else. I'm like, well, you're more than welcome here. You can do both. Depending on where your dispatches are and what you want to do. And so, we got her started on a job site, and a couple of weeks later, it was him. It was like, okay, I kind of like that service. Do you have something for me? I'm like, well, yeah, sure. Let's look at your resume and see if we can get you what you want. The one big thing that I always see is when I interview trades, and I've probably interviewed over 300 trades in the last year. And the one thing that I always see is nobody really ever asks them what they like to do. Because you see their resumes, I'm like, oh, so you're a concrete form worker. And then I ask them, do you actually like form work? Oh, I hate form work, Dave. I'm really good at finishing. Has anybody ever asked you what you wanted to do? And he's like, no, I just always do form work because everybody gets me to do form work.
Yeah. It's a unique position you're in because it's a
so
trade.
I'm like, well, why don't we go do some finishing work? Because I want my employees to be happy.
Yeah.
And I think you'll be happy doing what you like to do every day.
Yeah. It's a really unique position because, again, if I'm running my exterior company and I get my resume and I see form and I need siding, and the guy's siding. Well, that guy, I'm not going to ask him what he likes, but you're in this unique position where you've already got the 10 people that do this.
Yep.
So you can afford to go, well, you like finishing, and you do have experience, so you can finish.
Yep.
And then he gets on one job, and you get good feedback, and that's very unique.
The feedback is important.
Yeah.
And you see it on their resumes, what they've been doing, what they're qualified to do.
Right.
And there's a little bit of a disconnect there, so you have to have that conversation with them, And I'm very honest. I'm like, it looks like you're probably pretty good at farming because that's pretty much what you've done your whole career. But I'm going to get you those jobs that you want to do.
Yeah.
We might, if there's some farm work and it's across the street and it's paying pretty good, I'm going to call you.
Yeah.
You don't need to take that work if you don't
Yeah.
want to. But
Yeah.
if you want that job and it's, and you go check it out for a couple of days, it doesn't work out, you just give me a shout and
Yeah.
we'll move on.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a question. I'm curious to know for an employer that comes in looking for guys for a job that he just got, out north somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Would you provide men or guys or girls
Manpower. We can't even do that. It's woman power.
human power, I guess.
Human power. Yeah.
Okay, we're not that politically
yeah.
correct on the show.
Would you provide? I guess because you have people, I guess, everywhere locally. So if they're heading out north,
I will try to recruit locally.
Okay.
I'm under the impression if we're trying to do a job in a remote area, is there people there?
Exactly.
You need 5 or 10 electricians. Is there 5 or 10 electricians there?
Yeah.
Or where does this manpower come from?
Mm-hmm.
Where do these highly skilled trades come from? So, in Canada, there are a lot of very, very good trades personnel, highly qualified, highly ticketed that are in Alberta right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're highly displaced. And we all know that. So, I don't have all the solutions for them, but if I have anything that resembles anything that would work for them, I'm calling them.
Right. So you could send someone from Alberta out to
Absolutely.
I don't know, Northern Territories or something.
We did a job last year in north in Yellowknife, and I couldn't find anybody in Yellowknife that could do the work because maybe you're living in Yellowknife. Yeah, there's electricians there, but they're working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They have jobs, so that's probably why you're calling me is you can't find anybody local. We want to recruit local, so when I recruit, I'll post locally, and then I'll post. Maybe I'll post in Edmonton, Calgary, Kelowna, Vancouver, to see who's available and what those skills persons look like, and if they're even interested in this work, if they're available, if they're interested, and yeah, it's a lot of phone calls.
Yeah. Yeah, because if someone puts up a bid, they've got a project, and you're saying, okay, well, we can provide the manpower. Now you've got to go into your database, and you're saying, okay, now you actually have to go and do a job posting if you don't have the amount of people you need. You actually have to do a job posting to find someone to come to work for you to send to work to them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we're always trying to build our database.
Yeah.
We're always looking for personnel. And it's a weird thing because you don't know who's available when.
That's right. Yeah. So I was wondering, how do you?
You're waiting for them to maybe phone you, or you phone them, and are you busy right now? No, I think I'm going to be ready in a week or two. Okay, well, phone me when you think you're going to be coming off, and where we can get you going again, right? Because again, I want to make sure everybody's just working.
Yeah.
However that looks.
How did Tradesmen International start? Like, what's the beginning of? Where did this all come from?
Mm-hmm. Well, this was the exact scenario where Joe Wesley started in 1992, whereas he saw that his manpower and his scopes of work and his jobs were, up and down. We need 5 guys for this job right now, and then some days we need 2, and then he realized right away that he just could see that his manpower was, he needed some sort of device where he could, retain his guys, flex them in and out of different jobs and different projects, and because he was having a hard time maybe retaining the guys or keeping them busy all the time.
Yeah.
There's high seasons and low seasons in every industry.
Yeah.
So.
But this was in '92 that he.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was an electrical contractor, and Canada. It's kind of funny because Canada, for tradesmen, we've got 200 offices in the U.S., 1 office in Canada. So we're kind of like when tradesmen all started for Canada.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that
Right
was
now.
that was my
You
next
know, where
question.
it's like starting all over.
Yeah.
That was my next question. You're in a leadership position here.
Mm-hmm.
What is this is probably a good area to sort of wrap up the show is, you've started from, going through, you've worked on the pipelines, you've
Yep.
worked as a carpenter,
Mm-hmm.
you've built sky rises, you've
Yeah.
done all this.
Mm.
Now you're in this leadership position.
Yep.
You've got 200 offices over here.
Yep.
You've got one in Canada, which is the second largest country in the world by land mass.
Yep.
And what is your vision? You go into work a day and you're doing, I'm sure you're handling salespeople and doing all that stuff. But that long-term vision, what is it for you?
My long-term vision when I started as the GM was I wanted to build some offices. I think that I laid it out that I wanted to build 5 to 9 offices here in Canada. Um, I had to take a step back and really focus on our marketplace. I thought that I had a really good grasp on our marketplace, and it really changed a lot here this year.
Yeah.
And it's very destabilized, so I really haven't had time to focus on anything but our marketplace at the moment. But we're getting calls from other places in Canada, like Toronto is very busy. They're having the same problems that we had last year now.
Yeah.
But you're still seeing in places like Alberta that these people need jobs. So is there a way for us to recruit from the places where there's not enough work for them, and get them to work at these other places that are vibrant right now?
And that goes back to Gowdy's question about
Where do these people come
local
from?
coming from, moving them all
Yeah,
around, and
exactly.
it's
And we do that. Like we literally could do, remote jobs for us is probably better than anybody.
Right.
Whereas when we call clients, we ask them, "Do you do any work in the U.S.? Because I could service you with 200 offices in the U.S. Do you guys do any remote camp work and stuff like that? Because you're going to have to recruit, retain. Uh, we could help you do that. We're a full-time recruiting company. So, we think that we're pretty good at finding personnel and good personnel to go and get production done.
Yeah, it would strike me when you said that vision of more offices. If you're having one office on the West Coast, I suppose there's in the U.S. you got 250 states. So one state's dropping, you've got another state that's going. So there's that sort of coordination. That would be a challenge if it's the boom is in Quebec, you're in BC, you don't have a sales team right on the ground,
Right.
or do you have that here in Canada?
No, we don't have that at the moment. Like we're there. It's in the talks. We have an office right across the water from Toronto,
Right,
in
yeah,
GTA,
yeah.
in Rochester, New York.
Right,
That could service that area quite easily.
right.
So it's Canada, U.S. It would be the difference between Seattle and Vancouver. We're not very far away from each other.
Yeah. But even city by city, there's a very markets are very unique to their. We've certainly found that. We've traveled around, meeting with companies and clients and doing all this stuff, and it always takes me back how unique. Even going from Vancouver to Kamloops,
Ugh.
it's just it's a different way of thinking. It's a
Yep.
different environment. People make decisions at a different. Not even a different pace, but they have different types of questions, and then it's just a very different. And then you go back to East, it's completely different the way they even do business. Like I remember getting a meeting here can be a challenge. I go back. When I spent some time in Toronto, I would meet a guy. He'd be in finance or whatever. And I mean, these guys are working for major corporations. Doing investment stuff. They're not even trying to sell to me. They're just. I go, oh, I'm doing this thing with some mining stuff. Do you want to meet? Yeah, sure, let's meet tomorrow. It was just so quick. Everything was so quick. So it's hard to. I'm sure. I'm just preaching to the choir. It's
know
hard
exactly
to
what you're
understand
talking
the
about.
market if you don't have at least one set of eyes looking right at it. Hey.
Yeah, no, and I guess that's what Tradesmen wanted for Vancouver was, let's start with something, an area where we can, really understand that market and grow from there.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of plans for growth. There's a large team in our U.S. corporate offices that, nobody sees it, but they're working every day to support our office,
Right. Yeah.
in every shape and form. So all of our payroll is generated through our corporate office in Ohio.
Mm.
So, they gotta. I know that they're very busy all the time.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Mhm.
We're sort of there was other things I wanted to talk about here, but I think everything we talked about was important to cover.
Yeah.
So we might have to get you back or figure out a way to get some,
Yeah,
because
love to.
there's I'll just quickly, some of the stuff was the partnerships you develop. I saw like
Yeah.
United Rentals and that to kind of develop best practices.
Yeah.
You've got in the U.S. you said it's more popular, the veterans employment. I mean, there's
Yeah.
just some really good stuff that Tradesmen International. So I hope we get another opportunity to sort of
Yeah.
unpack some of that
Yeah.
stuff too. So
Likewise.
thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, very
We've
much
got
appreciated.
do we have some sponsorship that we got to go out with?
Nope.
No, we're good to go.
We're good.
Okay. We've changed some format a little bit. So we'll get to that in a second as well, which is some of the offerings we're doing. But David, thanks for coming on the show. I
Yeah.
mean, it's sort of, sometimes I feel almost like we're cheating because we get people to come in here and they give us just this amazing information,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
I think that's what it's all about. I always laugh about it. I literally feel like I'm a school teacher every day because all I do is education, 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 and I probably sound like a broken record to 90% of the people I talk to every day. But I'm really trying to help them and grow their businesses. I'm really help the employees that are out there find a suitable home for themselves so that they're able to progress in life.
yeah.
So
No, it's
that's what keeps me going every day.
it's an amazing thing. So
Mhm.
yeah, thank you very much. For
Appreciate
coming
it, you guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll sign off. Where are we signing off to, Gatti? This
Right
one?
here,
Oh,
yeah.
nice. Okay. I should have wrote it out for you, but you're back from holidays, and we're just getting things together, so that's fine. But we've this month
Uh-huh.
we developed sort of a new model for what we're doing. So now what it is there's still a sponsorship. Of course, people can sponsor the show. We'd
course.
love to get your brand on here and promote. And if you're in heavy industry, your people are watching this show.
Yeah.
And that's pretty affordable. Pretty much any company of any size. You obviously want to make sure they fit, but they can afford it. But we
Yeah.
also do these specials now, which is going to be sort of a similar idea, but it's a
Mhm.
one-on-one interview. It's on a set, and that's sort of a unique thing. So if you want to like sort of really focus on shorter versions to get out your technology, your services, and that,
Yeah.
and then we'll help you develop your own show as well. Completely your own brand, your own feel. We'll even come on site and do it. So we've sort of remodeled that. So it's pretty interesting. If you're interested, you can put the email and everything
I'll
up. And
definitely put
yeah.
the email there on our.
And the next show, I'll let you know that we're going to talk about that before the show
I
starts.
had no idea.
So
This is
anyway.
news to me, so it's also information for myself.
Yeah. Where can everybody find us, listen to us, watch
Yes.
us, laugh at us, comment, be angry? I'm sure we said something.
Hey, yes. And we'd be happy to hear
I
all
wish
of
we
it.
had more controversy.
I know.
We need
right?
more.
Oh. Definitely you can watch us on YouTube. Please subscribe to our channel.
Yep.
We've got an episode every week, every Friday. And we've got highlights from all our episodes as well on there. You can also listen to us on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Castbox, Breaker, and many, many, many more.
You
that I
notice,
don't remember.
she doesn't write them down, so it's a challenge every week
Every
to see how
week.
far you can get. I know what you're doing.
Yes, and you can also, go to our website, crownsman.com, and the camera actually just shut
Go
off,
over
so
here.
I'm going to move over here. Yes, you can definitely visit our website at crownsman.com and email us info@crownsman.com. So
Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining us, David. Thank you for hosting with me, Gowdy.
again.
And thank you for watching. We will see you on the next episode.